podcast excellence since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts radio network, kingofpodcasts.com.
The new year couldn't come any sooner.
Woo! Hey, this is the Nature Boy Ric Flair, and believe it or not, whether you like it or don't like it, learn to love it, because you have to listen to Wrestling is Real. It is the best thing going today. Woo!
The worldwide leader of podcasting excellence, the King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents The Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Welcome to the final episode of the Wrestling is Real podcast for 2024. We are coming back next year. King of Podcasts here with you, here to recap AEW World's End for 2024. The final pay-per-view on the schedule this year in the wrestling world that I cover. And there's a lot to be said. We'll go into the new year. And, of course, some new things we have coming out of what's being set up for the Netflix debut. And what's being set up for the first Dynamite of the Year, Fight for the Fallen, following World's End. So let's go through and at least try to talk about some of the good things that are going to be happening. Now, the platforms for both companies, the top two companies in the country or in the world, they're going to be on prominent streaming brands coming up. So as for some changes that have been going on right now with both companies, we know WWE is going to be starting January 6th with the Netflix debut. So we're about a week away from that. And then we move on into AEW, which we haven't talked much about lately on the program because the toxic fandom has just been such a focus on this program for too much time right now. It kind of takes away from the wrestling. That's the one thing I had the biggest contention with all year. But AEW is going to be moving to Max along with TBS or TNT for their programs for Dynamite and Collision. Okay, so that's all good news. The broadcast deals that they both got themselves locked into, they were able to go negotiate over the year. Those are the big positives we got out of 2024. As for the product of both brands, no. They both went off a cliff this year. I'm going to just say it like that. Both WWE and AEW, their creative went off a cliff. I don't know how you can pull them back onto the cliff again and get them back on the solid ground. All you have to do is just look at what started the year and how we're ending it. Now, we're going to go into what WWE has been doing right now to set things up for the Wednesday program. We will set the table as to what's being set up now going into WrestleMania season. We know that Cody and Kevin Owens are going to face each other. Ladder match of the Royal Rumble. We know it'll be Seth and CM Punk. We know that Drew and Sami Zayn are going to be dealing with each other. We know that at the Netflix debut, we got Tribal Combat to try to wrap things up with the Bloodline. I don't know how that's going to work. So things like that we have set up. That's on that side. And of course, Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan will have one more match finally. Maybe this match will actually give us a decisive winner. But that's WWE. Now, as for the AEW side, got to look back to last year when we first got to the program, okay? And we talked about World's End coming out of last year's World's End and where they were. The long-standing storyline of MJF and Adam Cole, right? Brothers by design, right? When they're together, tag team champions, both competing against each other at odds because MJF is the champion. MJF wrapping up a 407-day title reign as champion. As Samoa Joe beats him, but of course, Samoa Joe unfortunately gets hurt later on. We haven't seen him since. We know we lost Adam Copeland in that TNT title match with what happened with in the match with Christian Cage, right? And then we know that we had Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley facing each other in the inaugural Continental Classic. And Eddie Kingston being the first Continental Champion. Losing it to Kazuchika Okada, who comes into the Continental Classic. And regardless of what people think about what the tournament is, I could care less. I know, listen, it's a great way to kind of build up something for the next month and a half, whatever. It was nice when it was first done, but now that's a consistent thing. I don't know. I don't know if I need the tournament right now just to have that. But of course, it fills some time. But there are people that are complaining about, well, the whole deal with Ricochet and Ospreay not getting their match, getting it on Dynamite, or excuse me, it was on Collision. And even though the ratings went well for Collision for that particular match last week, regardless, there are still people within a toxic wrestling fandom that still feel like, well, Ricochet and Ospreay, that's the storyline. That's what's got to be done. Meanwhile, there is a point that's got to be said about the stars that were brought in as free agents this year and how they were utilized. We're talking about Ospreay, Okada, and Moné, and how they were used this year. So Okada wins the Continental title. We had a bit of a presence, obviously, trying to build his character and develop him as he was with the Young Bucks, and they were kind of bridging themselves into that. So the Continental title not had a focus for him, but it was a belt that he had. And then we move along into Toni Storm and her title reign. And, you know, the Thomas Toni Storm character we enjoyed so much. Out of this pay-per-view last year, we also had Miro and Andrade El Idolo. Almost forgot that these two, not even around. And Andrade's last final AEW match. And I'm sorry, people that were telling us that Andrade El Idolo moving back to WWE was going to be significant. What have we done with him so far? I feel like he's also dropped off the cliff. I don't see anything of him facing Carmelo Hayes and being put into the purgatory of the U.S. title picture. This is what we thought was going to be the big deal. I don't notice anybody talking about Andrade. A year later, he comes back out, and we have heard nothing from him. Nothing. Eddie Kingston would get hurt. Samoa Joe would get hurt. Adam Cole would get hurt. MJF would have to go out for a while. Adam Cole also being away for a long time. All this. Undisputed Kingdom tonight. We're basically back to the storyline of MJF confronting the Undisputed Kingdom last time at World's End. It's as if you almost have to kind of like just take away a lot of the months that were going on, the whole return of MJF, deal with Daniel Garcia, and then the horrible storyline, the remote virtual MJF promo cutting while he's not even in the ring, and the thank me later era now, what we have of him, which I don't like. I don't know what they've done. I mean, obviously, he was a face. They turned him. But now it's like, okay, is he going to turn again? I'm not sure what to think right now. But the return of MJF since, I've not liked. And it's not him, it's the booking. I say it like that. It's not him, it's the booking. When I look at Undisputed Kingdom, okay, they gave us the whole long teaser, Kyle O'Reilly coming back from injury. And will he join the group? Now he does. Okay, so Undisputed is back together. Here we go. The Kingdom, Undisputed Era as originally it was at NXT. Now we have them complete along with, Bennett and Taven. All right. Anyways, we're back to that now. But it's been a faction, Undisputed Kingdom, that has not much done of anything except for Roderick Strong holding holding a title for a while in that TNT title, right? The International Championship, excuse me. And then, of course, we had to go through the whole part of MJF and Ospreay with that International Championship. We had to deal with that. So Ospreay, getting the feud with MJF was the one thing I think was good for MJF that was utilized right. The Daniel Garcia stuff never really went anywhere, never formulated. And the Adam Cole stuff, hated it. Because he wasn't there. No confrontation. And another kind of like, go back to the mix again and say, okay, we're going to have you go ahead and face each other. So Roddy against Adam and then this and that. And then, you got to face all these other opponents. I got to throw these roadblocks against you. The MJF playbook, it is getting old. And the one thing that MJF has right now as a prop that he still hold on to is the Dynamite Diamond Ring. The Dynamite Diamond Ring, which obviously you can kind of tell no one else is going to get that ring. It's going to be so long before somebody else gets that ring anyway. MJF is holding on to it because that's his prestige. He gets to have the claim of having that. And that's it. That's it. And then we go and fast forward to tonight. Okay, Adam Copeland returns. He's back with FTR. There's a purpose for all of them. Undisputed Kingdom now are formulated once again. Yes, we're Strickland kind of circling around Ricochet. By the way, no Hurt Syndicate around as this is going on. The Death Riders, to me, is the most, what's the best word to use? Underwhelming faction I've seen in a decade. Look, I get that Moxley's trying to do something here. It's like, it's a pivot for the Blackpool Combat Club that they did, right? Stirring off the fact that it was Daniel Bryan, or to be Bryan Danielson, that was defeated for the world title. And then we get that, and then, all right, this attack among the other, I guess you could say, pillars of AEW, when you have Jay White, who's kind of been lost in the mix now. I liked him better when he was kind of dealing with the Undisputed Kingdom, and that whole Bang Bang gang was kind of dealing with that, but Jay White's out there on his own. Right? And then you have Orange Cassidy and his conglomeration, and that's kind of also been put in the background. But it's like, there's not much there. I mean, they were kind of tied together, and now they're not. And Mark Briscoe is doing his own thing with Chris Jericho on the and the Ring of Honor world title. So, like, the split off of there. Like, you have these loose knit factions that really don't matter much. Like, they're not Inner Circle. They're not Pinnacle. I mean, that's the thing. Some of these factions we have right now, they're just not that well formed, and they're just not that well cohesive. Like, there's not much of a purpose to it. Even the Jericho Appreciation Society, right? That's like the last group that was really like the formed faction. And those can work, and they've had some of those that work better, but it's not right now. The Bang Bang Gang we have not had much with, and I think also when certain stars are kind of relegated to Collision, yeah, they're going to get lost in the mix. They're not going to get that much of a push because, I mean, I'll tell you, college football season, man, very difficult for me to think about Collision. I'm just not watching. Football season, you're losing me there. I'm going to be at games. I'm going to be watching other games. Right now, bowl season, Saturday, like, you're going to struggle to get me to go and watch. Like right now, man, they're going to get some leeway pretty soon because next month, football season will die down and they'll finally get their Saturday nights back. And we'll see how that works out, right? But regardless, it's like when they kind of take certain stars and they kind of relegate, okay, so some of these stars are going to move over to Ring of Honor, some are going to go to Collision, some are going to go to Dynamite. They're kind of doing a brand split now. I don't like it. I wish they didn't do that. I mean, if you want to make it where Dynamite storylines, they continue on into Collision storylines, like if you got factions, they kind of face each other, you can kind of do that. I don't want the brand split. And I feel like we've gotten the brand split now in what's going on because I want Dynamite to still be a show that's the focal point. Collision offsets what's going on Dynamite. That's what I want, but we're not getting that right now. And it's something about whatever this kind of piecemealing of booking right now that's going on and how it's being done. As Tony Khan, I would prefer he uses the shows that he has. Now, the one thing I'll tell you is going to be good is, I mean, Rampage has been kind of the shoot off for doing storylines that still continue on with Dynamite. But now Rampage is no longer the offshoot to kind of like throw other matches into. Collision has to be that. So you have to build Collision off of Dynamite. Maybe that helps. Maybe that'll help me get a little more interested in what's going on over there too. But yeah, there's a thing about that. And I don't want to hear the shit about, oh, when Punk left, then all the air out of AEW's momentum is gone. It got deflated. No, bullshit. I'll tell you the biggest problem that Tony Khan had this year. it's one thing to go ahead and take some of these existing WWE stars, right? People that came like Samoa Joe or Edge, right? Or Bryan Danielson, taking some of those stars that, have a lot of credit, a lot of capital to them. They're draws, okay? But it's always going to be an issue when you take some of these New Japan stars, in essence, because remember, when you look at Ospreay, Okada, and Moné, now regardless of Sasha Banks and the Sasha Banks character that Mercedes Moné played, remember, she's been gone since May of 22, right? And she has reinvented herself, the Indies and in New Japan, Mercedes Moné. She's as much a New Japan star as Okada and Ospreay are. So bringing them into the mix here, they're international stars. They don't have that American presence, even though we have fans that are out there that are in the know, fans that listen to this program, other programs. And yes, you're aware, oh yeah, we've heard of Ricochet and Ospreay and all these, you know all these stars that come into play, right? But when you're having these international stars come in, if something is said about, number one, dealing with bringing these new stars in and trying to integrate them and develop characters for them that are going to be AEW driven, AEW created, originated. I believe they've been trying to do that now with Okada and Ospreay. And with Mercedes Moné, they've been having issues right now just trying to get things started. Obviously, the whole thing with Britt Baker should have been like something more, but there's been the issues there backstage, right? With Mercedes Moné, they had Camille, the break off of that bodyguard to help out. I think that was going to be a help, but then Camille got hurt. Now we're at the point where Mercedes Moné has another rematch with Kris Statlander. That takes care of that. But it's like, whatever we're trying to get out of Mercedes Moné is not working. She's starting to go the way of Saraya, right? Saraya was like the same way. Okay, here's a former star. But it's like we're kind of struggling to get her back because for Saraya, it was a long time away from seeing her as Paige. Same thing goes now with, almost like with Jamie Hayter is also another example of that. But then you have stars that when they first got into the company and you were trying to build them up, and you're trying to take these stars that nobody knows and build characters off of them. I think you could feel like you could get some of that off of some of these stars. And I think that's the focus of that has not been there. I mean, Ospreay, yes. I think they've done a lot with Ospreay, and I think it's worked. I mean, I think he's much more over now. And for the AEW side, I think he is a draw for them. Okada, I think for them, they realize, well, there's obviously key, crucial matches they're going to have. Omega coming back now and Okada holding that Continental title. That's going to be where you see, well, okay, Omega and Okada, we'll see them in New Japan. We'll see them in other things. That's obviously what's going to go on there. Kenny Omega returning back. That's a huge return, along with Adam Copeland. To see those two coming back tonight, that's crucial for them to get themselves back up. They need some of those stars to come back in with such adulation. They got to get them back in. And then what we have from there is those three stars, okay? Okada, Ospreay, Moné, if they've had a difficult time trying to build up. With Toni Storm, you had that great women's world title run. They've gone to Mariah May, and it's been a bit of a struggle for her. Thunder Rosa not being put up in that spot to be champion again, but former champion, working her way up once again. And Tijuana Street Fight, and Mariah May comes away with it. I like the Toni Storm reset. That whole deal is going to be good. Just give it more time, and let's just see what else happens with that. Let's continue that storyline and where it goes. Konosuke Takeshita, International Champion. His title reign has felt quiet to me after he won it off of Ospreay. And like right now, we're just like, Takeshita's there. Callisto's got his thing. And it's like, I think it's the matches that you have and what you do after that. So Powerhouse Hobbs comes in here and kind of just given a match to be thrown at, and that's it. But there's just some storylines where, okay, we have factions. We got Christian Cage, the patriarchy, who's been relegated a lot into Collision, which is unfortunate. I need to see that something that needs to be done. You can't just relegate certain stars. I mean, Kyle Fletcher, I think, as an offshoot from Will Ospreay. I think the focus of having Kyle Fletcher in the setup and, Ospreay getting a win back off of Fletcher when it came to the title tournament, that's good. But I mean, Kyle Fletcher, I think he's gotten over now. I think they've definitely made him, and that's with Ospreay and Fletcher, I think they've done a good job of getting those two stars that are obviously outside of the whole mainstream set of wrestling fans and getting them into something where they could be much more important. I think that's happened. Moné, it's still there. There's just not enough for me to go ahead and feel wrapped up and excited about. Ricochet, I don't know. I don't care about the dream matches and all this. Just give me storylines I'm going to give a shit about. And that's the part I think we're kind of missing out altogether. And what needs to happen is you need to go ahead and make Dynamite complement Collision and the other way around. So if there's certain things that go ahead and lead off of Dynamite in storylines, put them on Collision. Let's get a continuation. No more brand split. I don't want that shit. It sucks. Because I want a reason to watch Collision. If you're going to make me go ahead and get myself emotionally invested to go and watch Collision and make sure I catch it even though I'm going to be watching football, then give me a reason to go and watch. Because, I mean, yeah, you can set up matches, and they've done it, and there's sometimes the match is there, but it's like, I'll see Collision, and I'll see the card they put up right before. I'll look out for it on Instagram or Twitter or X, and I'm like, no, I can miss, I can skip. And I do. And that's a big problem they got. They got to figure that out. And there's other storylines they're doing right now about the breakup with the Acclaimed. I could care less. There's just something about the other problem where some of the storylines and where they've been doing venues right now. Doing 3 shows at Hammerstein Ballroom. I didn't watch any of those shows. I glommed over the Dynamite, but I caught clips of Rampage. I caught clips of Collision. I was like, eh. So, I mean, even what AEW has to provide right now on clips for social media is a bit of a downside. I feel a deflation right there because I'm not as excited, not as interested. Because I need storylines that are kind of woven in well to work off of this. And at the moment, AEW is suffering just as bad as what WWE is doing right now. Just saying. So we got the matches we had set up tonight. Already talked about it. I'm not going to go through the matches and what they were. I mean, the matches were fine. But a lot of retaining. Nothing more. Will Ospreay beat Kyle Fletcher. Kazuchika Okada defeating Ricochet to set up the final match later on in the night. Mariah May retains the Women's World title. MJF retains his Dynamite Diamond Ring. Konosuke Takeshita retains International Championship. See the trend here? TBS title. Mercedes Moné retains. Kazuchika Okada retains the Continental title in the Continental Classic. And Jon Moxley retains the AEW World Heavyweight title. Yeah, so I mean, they were kind of giving excitement and newsworthiness for the returns, but no title changes. And the fact they had no title changes to make right here, because there's nothing to really change. The titles that they have right now and who are holding those belts, yeah, it's because that tells me there's not a lot right there that Tony Khan has set up to make us excited about the possibility of a title change among any of those title holders. That's extremely telling. But it's also because they've had a number of stars that were kind of having to work off of that didn't have. No Copeland, no Joe, no Omega. They've had some stars on the shelf. And to replace some of the free agents that they had on, it's a harder transition for them to do. And let's just put it like this. If you would have put Ospreay, Okada, and Moné in WWE right now, I guarantee you would have not have made one damn difference. You can tell me I'm wrong. You can say, oh, Triple H had a great idea for them. No. I really believe that if they were going to go ahead and sign them on, it was going to be, just to go ahead and kind of keep them away from AEW. I don't know. I don't know if it would be anything else. But yeah, those free agents did not necessarily resonate to bringing aboard. I mean, you have a very niche audience familiar with Okada and Ospreay coming into the company this year. So no Bryan Danielson, all right? And you're not having MJF as much out there. Yeah, you're going to get some shows. And also, when you're doing the switch to Collision, and Collision is being a little more into having just, we'll have these other shows that we have just other stars in, and you see some changes that are going on that are not necessarily too interesting, because, for Collision, you might have things that are going on. Oh, yeah, MJF and Adam Cole, they had face-to-face, right? And then you had Continental Classic matches, but, seriously, they were kind of building up to more things that were going on, but, for me, it's there are things that are bringing up that are switching over from Dynamite to Collision, but not everything. And knowing we just have other matches that just go on, it's okay, this is just where we're kind of putting in matches just to put them in, like Ring of Honor stars with Briscoe and Mornos, or Fonzie, Daniel Garcia being part with things right now with Shelton Benjamin, but it's also Continental Classic, so I guess it's kind of a lay into, but come on. The stuff with Jericho and Big Justice and Acclaim doing their own stuff over there on Collision, there's some split off on certain things. I'm I just don't care. I just don't care. But that's where we are now. I mean, the table being set, what do we get out of what we did tonight? So we know that Okada and Omega, that's going to get set up. MJF, I don't know if that's done with him and Undisputed Kingdom, because they have kind of gotten their whole thing split up, whatever that's going to happen with that. And you got all these title holders. Now, Jon Moxley, he's going to have his crew with Yuta and and Claudio confronting Rey to FTR. That's coming up next. What do you got next after that? So, that's what's got to happen. Integrating some of these stars into the mix right now. Okay, they've done some of that. But let's get back to some business that kind of works. Let's get back into getting some storylines that were working out really well. Like with Undisputed Kingdom and MJF and the whole setup with that. That was great last year. The Timeless Tony Storm stuff was really great for last year. And there were just certain storylines that really head up well. Radio FTR, with the whole thing with Adam Copeland and Christian Cage, and that setup and everybody was all around that. That was wonderful. There was just certain things we had that were working out. And Samoa Joe confronting with Swerve Strickland or with Hangman Adam Page and all that going on. That was great. But we're missing storylines that are just very heavy. Too much time with the Death Riders. Way too much time with the Death Riders. We need to get somewhere with this. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm going to just leave it there. We will just go ahead and circle ourselves back and see what we learned about that coming off of World's End, and see if we get something good off of Dynamite. By the time we go and talk again, it'll be after another kind of lame duck Raw to wrap things up on the USA Network. And then we'll have Fight for the Fallen that will have happened. We'll get to talk about that, and we'll come back in the new year and talk about it. In the meantime, a couple of comments that I get over the last few here from listeners that caught me up on the YouTube channel. I'll take a couple of stories over there. From a couple of stories I already did. This is just for the last couple of days. I had one person that's been on and has been catching some of my content named Breezy Hack. So I'll take from him first. Well, actually, no, I got to talk more about this. So Breezy Hack and also James Bat 9854, both of them kind of gave some comments on this. So let's go and take it from them real quick. James says, this is about after my episode on Wednesday, WWE's Netflix nightmare, the death of sports entertainment. And James says, this isn't the Netflix era, nor is it the Attitude era or Ruthless Aggression eras. It's the childish era, he says. Everything and everyone in or associated with wrestling is juvenile. The fans are infantilized. The wrestlers and storylines are simplistic and childlike. This is why wrestling progresses at such a slow pace now. Well, I think it's regressed a bit. But these are ebbs and flows. This does get better. I do know that happens. We've always gotten up and downs like this. In the 12 years I've done this program, I know that happens. So we'll get an upswing back on this. But I mean, for the good of wrestling and all these new broadcast deals, it has to get better. They're going to have to feel the pressure coming up soon, because now they have to perform under those deals. Hopefully, they've all figured that out. The entire industry is an overindulged brat that has all the development, intelligence, and potential of a dead slug. Look at the very thumbnail of this video. Every single one of these people are posers, like daycare kids. They pretend to be a tough guy, a Barbie doll, etc., but none of them are truly the part. Once they tire of these imaginings, they will shed them and pretend to be something else. There's no substance here, and frankly, after a lot of fans see how Netflix starts, I would not be surprised if that proves to be the final straw for them. No, they'll find their way around, James. They will. It's just not a good start to all this. Triple H is following the same playbook that Vince has. You got to go to part-timer to get things up. And what was it I read earlier on X? Somebody saying, so eventually it's going to be Kevin Owens that'll take the belt off of Cody Rhodes, and then Sami Zayn will be WWE champion. No. Absolutely not. No, Sami Zayn, WWE champion? Stop it. Stop it. You are delusional. No way does he get to be champion. No way. No way. Not in this current character. No. Breezy also follows along and makes a comment, says that, indeed, I agree with you. And honestly, they're not even going to go be PG-13, means they wasted their time to go to Netflix. They should have subbed to go on Disney, but I bet even Disney said none of their BS. I subbed to Netflix for Raw, and then we have some of their product on Peacock and USA Channel. It's just stupid. So Netflix servers still suck for live shows. Well, NFL on Christmas Day did come out okay. I saw some of that. That'll be fine. And the Breezy also comments on my Netflix fueled WrestleMania Greed Fest, still coasting on Vince's leftovers, and he says this: these haters going to hate since they can't even stand the truth. You tell it as it is. Thank you, Breezy Hack. The wrestling product is depressing this year. The WWE storylines are too long and sick of it. For example, the Judgment Day is long overdue to split up since over a year ago. It should have been a different faction. Breezy, should have been a different faction. You're going to go and keep that up. Change it. There's nothing about Judgment Day in this faction. They're just keeping it there because it can sell merch. Honestly, the last time I actually cared about Judgment Day was when R-Truth was kind of, bumbling around with that. And they don't even do that anymore. When Balor had his Seth Rollins feud and most of the Bloodline Mafia solo storyline is stupid. For so long, it should have ended at Survivor Series. Saturday night's main event was overhyped and lame. KO is right. LOL. The Netflix premiere looks like a glorified pay-per-view. Should end all BS feuds, but we know Seth versus CM Punk is going to be 3 matches until Mania, so it could be the 3rd match. Drew's getting wasted going to the golden boring boy, Cody. I'm waiting for the real American Nightmare to come out heel. I want heel Roman, as you said. It has been looking weak since he came back, but should have been official chief again after Survivor Series. I love AEW, but the last 2 years have been up and down roller coaster ride, and some stories make no sense. Especially, I don't know why Orange Cassidy had a match against Moxley, and now he's in a fatal 4-way at World's End. I'm mad AEW had too many injuries, and I hope most of them come back next year. I want Bullet Gold versus New Japan Bullet Club next year. Jay White should be champ next year. I can see Christian Cage getting that title to end up with Copeland going after him too. Death Riders looked nice at first, but it turned into random BS filler. I was hoping to see Rico join her Syndicate Ricochet, and Tony's new characters being weird and interesting. Yep. So that's it with that. One more comment here. Breeziak also writes about the Netflix Nightmare. Says, I felt this year wrestling has been stupid, boring, predictable shit. The truth, the Bloodline storyline carried the company, even when we got about a bit stale. It's why we have Roman versus Solo on Netflix premiere as the last match. I bet we have Drew versus Jay, or Big Jim versus Drew, Jimmy Usos, versus Drew McIntyre, or one of those any Uso twins versus Jacob match announced on SmackDown or Raw for the Netflix premiere. Giving us Liv versus Rhea, Seth versus CM Punk is interesting, but we know that they won't be last matches in those feuds. We know The Rock is showing up too. They're going to give pay-per-view type matches of the premiere shows. The fact they're doing that is how desperate they are, that they know with the current Raw structure, it's a failure. And then React with Respect, I5I, he writes back and says, both companies need improvement. AEW needs a leadership overhaul ASAP. you're not going to get Tony Khan to get off the pencil. I understand that part. I am relegated to understanding that. What are we going to do about it? You can, toxic wrestling fandom, obviously, they can go and continue to bitch, moan, and complain. He's not leaving. He's not going to step back. So, at the least, I would say, Tony Khan, let's get some more going on where you have progression storyline seamless with Dynamite and Collision. It's not just like, okay, a couple things happen on Collision that's like, Collision's not that important. We're just going to put a couple storylines and have them kind of like follow along. No. Make it all the way through. Like, let's do something more with this, okay? Just saying. I don't want to have it where I want all stars to be available on all brands. And Ring of Honor stuff, leave it on Ring of Honor. That's it. We don't need a random Ring of Honor stars coming in. So if Chris Jericho's going to be champion down there, keep him down there. You don't bring Athena up and do anything with her on these other shows, so don't. Okay? Leave him down there. And finally, Prince MT12, he says, honestly, I just wanted to see how it goes. As long as some of the Attitude Era elements are back, it will be a welcome development compared to PG. Let's just wait. This is not the answer either. Okay? Expecting that the content's going to get a little bit more adult? No. I will say this, out of some of the comments I got in the last week, wait for the content, for the storylines to get even more simplified. Because with an international audience, I guarantee you that WWE is going to probably start trying to slow things down even more in progression of storylines. And they need to simplify the storylines to make it easy for all the international audiences to follow, so it's almost like a universal language. I don't know how they're going to do that. It's easier to go ahead and just present in the ring, but to try to go ahead and make it where it's very presentable and relatable and easy to comprehend through promos and other things, well, you have to figure that out. I don't know if they're going to figure it out in time, but we're already here. There's no more time to wait. No more time to practice. Netflix is here. Max is here, and both companies need to get their shit together. I do not want to come back to this microphone at the end of 2025 and bitch and feel depressed like I feel right now with wrestling at this point. I don't want that. We got to get rid of that, man. I hope that doesn't happen. So I am hoping for the best. And New Year's resolution for both companies, get your shit together. Get your storylines right. The end of this year sucked. It's time to shape things up. We'll see if they figure it out. Somebody's got to get a quick kick in the ass, and they better go and realize and get back to reality and get things back the way they should be. So come back for another Wrestling Through podcast in 2025 because wrestling needs us.